says it's 6 o'clock. Good evening, Northern Colorado. This is Bart, N0NYY, and I will be net control for this evening's NCARC Monday Night TechNet. The purpose of this net is to provide information to all hams, new and old, and is a great opportunity to ask questions about radio-related subjects that you've had issues understanding or not known, or however those questions come about. Tonight is a good night to get questions answered. The primary goal of this net is to get together, socialize, exchange information about subjects that may have come up that people have had questions about, and we've already had a couple questions come in via email this evening, and we'll get to those. And when you check in this evening, pardon me, I have a frog in my throat tonight. When you check in this evening, please give your call sign alphabetically, N0NYY. Also phonetically, November 0, November Yankee, Yankee, using standard ITU phonetics, please. And slowly enough that my slow brain can connect with my slow hand and I can get it down onto the paper. It's real hard when you go really fast. So going slow makes it a little bit easier for net control. If there is any emergency traffic this evening, you may interrupt by saying break or by inserting the suffix of your call sign. We will get to you and deal with your emergency traffic and resume the net when you are satisfied that your emergency traffic has been handled. There are no dumb questions if you're sincere in asking them, so no matter how basic you may feel your question is, tonight is the opportunity to ask and not worry about what people are going to think. This is why we do this, to provide information and to answer questions. I will take check-ins 3 in a row, and I will acknowledge the call signs after. If you do not hear me acknowledge your call sign, it may be that you doubled with someone and I didn't hear you. It may be that I just messed up. And that's the opportunity to listen and correct your call sign if I happen to get it wrong. That's why I like to read them back. I will begin taking check-ins 3 at a time with call suffixes ending in alpha through Mike. Suffixes in alpha through Mike, please call now.
Kilo Echo Zero, Sierra Oscar Romeo, KE0 SOR, Mike from Windsor.
KE0 SOR, I copied. Doubling station, go again, please.
Whiskey Alpha 7 Echo Mike, Ed and Erie. WA9 FBO, Whiskey Alpha 9, Foxtrot Bravo Oscar, Bob in LaPorte. Evening, Bart.
Whiskey 2 Charlie Oscar, Tom in Longmont.
We'll break there. KE0 SOR, WA7EM, WA9 FBO, Howdy Bob, and W2CO. Next group of 3, please call now.
KF0GQH, Kilo Foxtrot 0, Golf Quebec Hotel, Kent in Wellington.
Evening, Bart. K0HAK, Kilo 0, Hotel Alpha Kilo, Dave in Fort Collins.
KF0GZZ, Kilo Fox 0, Golf Zulu Zulu, Patrick, Mobile to Greeley.
All right, we'll break there. I would like to acknowledge KF0GQH, K0HAK, and KF0GZZ. Next group of 3, go ahead.
This is N0EMP, November 0, Echo Mike Papa, with Debbie, K0DBE, Kilo 0, Delta Bravo Echo. I have 3 items tonight.
KF0 OTG, that's Kilo Foxtrot 0, Oscar Tango Golf, Dave, Fort Collins.
All right, we'll break there. Got to put a line on my last break, so I had to hunt it down. Net would like to acknowledge N0EMP, K0DBE, and KF0OTG. Just a reminder to Dave and Mark, we're still on the suffixes alpha through Mike only, but it's okay. I got you in there. And if it were a formal net, we would probably address that a little more firmly, but tonight we really don't care. It's just practice, and we're trying to learn how to do it. That said, we're always looking for new net control operators, and a net like this tonight is an ideal one to learn how to do this. Should anyone choose to volunteer, let any one of us know, and we'll get you in there and get you trained and get some more net control stations doing this. Next group of 3, please call now.
KF0 LDS, Kilo Foxtrot 0, Lima Delta Sierra, Norval and Nyquist.
This is Kilo 0, Lima Echo Echo, K0 LEE, Lee and Greeley.
F0 BNK, November 0, Bravo, November Kilo, Rick and LaPorte.
All right, we'll break there. Would like to acknowledge KF0 LDS, K0 LEE, and N0 BNK. Howdy, Rick. Hey, we never went panning this season. We'll have to try again next year. Next group of 3, please call now.
Good evening, Bart. This is W0KJM, Whiskey 0, Kilo Juliet Mike, Kyle in Fort Collins.
This is KF0 ODD, Kilo Foxtrot 0, Oscar Delta Delta, Paul and Bertha.
KF0 QGT, that's Kilo Foxtrot 0, Quebec Golf Tango, John and Eaton.
We'll break there. And I would like to acknowledge W0KJM, KF0 ODD, and KF0QGT. Next group of 3, suffixes ending in alpha through Mike, please.
This is AE0CF, Alpha, Echo 0, Charlie, Foxtrot, Ben, Fort Collins.
This is K0AZA, Kilo 0, Alpha Zulu Alpha, Ron in Fort Collins.
Okay, and I would like to acknowledge AE0CF, good evening, Ben, and K0AZA, Ron. All right, let's open it up to all suffixes, Alpha through Zulu. We'll go 3 at a time. Please call net control now.
This is KB0YDN, Kilo Bravo 0, Yankee Delta November, Eric, Pinewood Lake.
W5VV, Whiskey 5, Victor Victor, Bill in Livermore.
This is KE0MWC, Kilo Echo 0, Mike Whiskey Charlie, Jerry in Gold Hill.
Okay, we'll break there. I would like to acknowledge KB0YDN, W5VV, KE0MWC. Jerry, where is Gold Hill?
Sorry, I missed. There was a double.
KE0MWC, Jerry from Net Control. Where is Gold Hill? I've never heard of that.
Okay, KE0MWC. I'm about 10 miles northwest of Boulder. I'm on the ridge between Left Hand Canyon and Boulder Canyon.
Roger, Roger. Now the name makes all kinds of sense. Thank you. Appreciate you checking in tonight. Okay, next group of 3. Any suffixes, please call now.
This is WB5TEX, Whiskey Bravo 5, Tango Echo X-Ray, Dale, Loveland, with one question.
Kilo Foxtrot 0, Quebec Mike Papa, Hockey in Longmont, KF0 QMP.
This is K3S80, Kilo 3, Sierra Alpha Delta, George Windsor, no traffic.
Okay, we'll break there. Okay, I'm mostly caught up. KF0 QMP, what was your name again? I'm sorry, I wasn't writing fast enough.
KF0 QMP, the name is Aki. I spell Alpha Kilo India.
Aki, very good. Thank you for clarifying. W5TEX, KF0 QMP, and K3SAD acknowledged. Next group of 3, please.
K0ARD, Kilo 0 Alpha Romeo Delta, Ann in Fort Collins.
This is N0PON, November 0 Echo Oscar, November David Greeley.
Last station, you were really noisy into the repeater. I think it was November 0 Echo Oscar. Can you confirm that call, please?
November 0 Oscar Echo November.
Oscar Echo November. Got it. Thank you. And acknowledging K0ARD. Good evening, Ann. Okay, we'll try one more group of three, and then we'll see if we can pick up Echolink, and we will also take late check-ins through the night as necessary. Any other wishing to check in on the air? Go ahead. Okay, any stations wishing to check in on Echolink, please go ahead. All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and get started. Again, we'll take late check-ins anytime through the night or through the night. 0 EMP. Greg, go ahead. You have the floor, sir.
Bart, there was a double with you.
Thank you. Doubling station, go ahead. Doubling station, go again, please. Okay, nothing heard. And 0 EMP, go ahead.
Thank you, Bart. 3 items. Item 1, I'd like to thank all our vets for service to their country on our Veterans Day here today. Thank you. Item 2, we have a lunch in Loveland every other week at Perkins on West Eisenhower Boulevard. It starts around 11:30ish in the morning, and this is the week for that lunch. So everybody's welcome. You do not have to be a ham radio licensee. You don't have to be a club member. It's not an NCARC event. Anyone interested in coming along can pop in. Let me reset this. Item 3, I learned something this week about APRS and APRS I-gates that I didn't know that cleared up what I thought was a problem and was not a problem. Briefly, an I-gate will receive APRS messages and put them out on the internet. And there's probably several websites. The one I use is aprs.fi, and it's .fi because it's in Finland. But they aggregate APRS messages from all over the world and plot them on a map, and you can click on a station and see what the messages are. Let me reset this again. Up at our property, which is northwest of Horsetooth Reservoir, Rattlesnake Ranch, at 7,500 feet, I have a very low power, like 200 milliwatt, APRS station that puts out telemetry for my solar electric system up there, and a couple of temperatures that it also reports. And it's direct line of sight to Horsetooth, where NCARC has an I-gate that puts stuff out on the internet. And I used to hit Horsetooth all the time. Now, when I look at APRS-FI, it shows that I'm either hitting out by Greeley or down south of Boulder, up east of Cheyenne, or lately I've been hitting a I-gate that is near Wellington. Everything except Horsetooth, which is very strange because Horsetooth is the closest I-gate and line of sight. Let me reset. Another member in North Loveland who uses APRS extensively was seeing the same sort of symptoms, and both of us wrongly assumed that something was wrong at Horsetooth. We both complained vociferously to James, KI0KN, to fix this problem. He investigated it and saw, in looking deeper in some logs, that Horsetooth is hearing both of us just fine. It's getting all of our transmissions. What turns out is happening is the Horsetooth I-gate is on our microwave backbone. So when it receives an APRS packet, it has to propagate all that data through the microwave backbone before it eventually comes out somewhere onto the internet, and then off it goes towards Finland. Let me reset. Some of these other stations that have a direct high-speed internet connection right at the station directly spit that out onto the internet, milliseconds quicker than the NCARC network, and it gets there first, and that's the only hit that it reports. So once it gets a packet from one source, it disregards all further reporting of that packet. So that's what was happening. Everything's fine at Horsetooth, but we're some other iGates are getting it to Finland just fractions of a second quicker, and that's why it shows we're hitting some far off station instead of the station right next door. And 0 EMP.
Comment.
Go ahead.
0 MLG. The reason the station that you're seeing by Wellington is at my place, and the APRS station, the iGate, is on a 10-element beam pointed right at your property. So that's why you are not talking to Horsetooth anymore, you're talking down here.
So actually Horsetooth is also hearing me, but you're connected, I imagine, directly to broadband internet. So you and Horsetooth are both hearing my packet. And if you want to, get hyper technical, Horsetooth probably hears the packet a few hundred microseconds sooner because it's a little bit shorter RF path. However, you're spitting that packet right out on the broadband internet directly, I imagine, from your house. And Horsetooth, again, because it's on the NCARC microwave backbone, it bounces around until it gets to a node on the microwave backbone that has an actual outside internet connection, which is probably means it goes down to CSU, and then it has to go through a router there and get out of the CSU network and then get out to the internet. So you get it out quicker. Once you catch that packet, you're getting it out onto the internet ahead of anything that NCARC can do.
It'd be interesting to see who sees your signal first, not going through the iGate just to see the signal. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that. I thought I had told you I had APRS out here. It talks up in the mountains really, really well. So anyway, that was all I had. Back to net. You can check me in Bart K0 MLG Kilo 0 Mike Lima Golf Marty Wellington.
Thank you for your good and proper check-in, Marty. I have you down. And this is N0NYY, the control for this evening's NCARC TechNet. Any other questions on Veterans Lunch or iGates? Okay. I also have a couple questions for Mike, from Mike via email, KZOSR. Stand by, Mike. We'll get to those next. And somebody else had a question. Dale, WB5, Tango Echo X-ray. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, WB5TEX. This is I don't know where to place this one. I was looking at some of the random things that show up on YouTube University, and a channel called Matthias Random Stuff from 5 days ago. This gentleman had purchased some clip lead wires made in China, and he was getting like 300 milliohm resistance through these lead wires. And come to find out, they were multi-strand. They were not soldered to the alligator clips, and they appeared to be copper-coated steel. And he had some older set leads from 5 or so years back, and what he did was he ran a magnet across it, and all of the wires were magnetic, but the older wires from, say, 10 or more years ago, were not magnetic. So I'm just wondering, and should the technical people on this net, should people be aware of this?
YDN comment.
Roger, Roger. I'm acutely aware as well. Eric, go ahead.
KP0YDN here. The usual suspect, although it's obviously not the case here, is copper-clad aluminum. You have to look for 100% copper or pure copper wires. And it means you have to do some digging. If they say CCA or copper cladding, or I don't know if they say CCS, but most of the stuff out of China, you can either get copper or you can get copper clad. And it's a real surprise when you find that out. I watched somebody doing a restoration of an Apollo display module, and it turned out they were having trouble with the display because of a copper-clad aluminum wire that broke, and with no indication on the outside that it had broken inside the insulation. Also, if you go on to Amazon to buy jumper cables, copper-clad aluminum is everywhere. CCA again. KB0YDN, back to net.
Echo Mike. 10-0-NYY. Did I start to double with someone? If I did, go ahead, please.
Whiskey Alpha 7, Echo Mike. In addition to what was just said, I bought some cheap jumper wires for working on radios, and frequently the connectors, the little springy clips, wires are not soldered to them. They're just sort of crimped into there, and they're extremely fragile, and you give a little tug a little bit too much and they come apart. So my 2 cents is don't be penny wise and pound foolish, that spend a little more and get the ones that are a little more rugged and reliable and will work for more than one time. WA7EM.
And I will add that, make sure I have it, I buy clip leads by the very large packages. I think the last package I bought had 76 of them in it, because I use these things all the time, every day, in the garage, in the workroom, in the radio shop, at the repair shop. I use these things all over the place. And it's become an automatic function to put a magnet on them, make sure the alligator clips are steel, make sure the wire is not. If it is, I will replace it with my own copper wire. But I have to solder every stinking one of them because they don't solder them. Soldering is an extra step, and it costs extra money, and solder is extra expense, and it costs extra money, and they want these things as cheap as they can possibly do it. So they do. They just crimp them. So even if you buy the cheap ones, that's okay. Expect a failure. Expect it soon or at the worst possible moment. And when you buy them, get them home, slide back the boot, open them all up, uncrimp them, solder the wire, recrimp the insulation, and know that you did yourself a big favor. Yeah, cheaper is better in everybody's opinion except those of us that actually use the items.
EMP.
Comments about cheap alligator clips.
EMP.
Right, Greg.
I've also noticed cheap coax that is either the center conductor is copper-covered steel, which I think is actually the case in 75 ohm RG, whatever. But I've noticed also the shield on some cheap RG58 can be steel braid shield with, I imagine it's nickel-plated steel.
Roger, Roger. As have I. RG79, I believe, is what you're talking about with the 75 ohm. The other The copper plated or tin steel I can deal with. I got several pieces of coax here that are stainless shield. Mandates a crimp. You have to crimp. You can't solder it. But when you discover that out in the vehicle, in the field, it's really, really super annoying. So another thing to watch out for there. They just don't build them like they used to. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments on the aforementioned items, we'll move on to our email questions here.
KF0, OCW, Kilo Foxtrot 0, Oscar Charlie Whiskey, Adrian in Fort Collins with a late check-in.
KF0, OCW, I have you on the list. Adrian, and congratulations, you make number 30 tonight. This is the longest list I've had in a long time. Thank you all for checking in. So, one moment. All right, on behalf of Mike, KE0SOR, we have two questions who pertain to FT8 and I guess not necessarily FT8, but another logging question. Question number one. I do quite a bit of FT8, quite a bit is an understatement, and was having a problem with operating system disk space. I was getting a constant error message, very frustrating, and took some research to figure out why the disk was full. It turns out that during the use of WSTJX, I'm thinking that's WSJTX maybe, all of the .wave files were getting stored on the drive. To remove them, you go to File and WSTJX and then click on Delete .wave files and confirm. Then magically all of your hard drive space is back. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the question is how to prevent that from happening?
Excuse me, thanks, Bart. Actually, what I figured out was, well, I didn't figure it out, I'm not that smart, but I couldn't even get in to do anything because the message error, JT9 error, keeps showing up. So after a bunch of research, in fact, I just figured that, well, that's a misnomer. I didn't figure it out, but through a bunch of research, I found out you actually have to go into Task Manager and quit what's called JT9. And I don't use JT9, but it was very frustrating that I couldn't even get in to correct this. But the bottom line is that somehow I managed to muddle through this, but it was very frustrating because my disk, my C drive, was just totally, completely filled, and there was no way I knew that could happen. So anyway, what I was just trying to do was to let people know that there is a way to get around this, and I have to admit, I've got, let's see, in the last couple of months or so, I've had probably 5,600 contacts in FTA. So you can say I'm a little bit fanatical about it. But anyway, that's basically it on that one. So if you have a problem with that, you need to somehow go to Task Manager, get rid of the JT9, close it down. Then you can go back into FT8 under File and delete those WAV files. But again, it's very frustrating.
Comment? W2CO?
W2CO, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. My comment on the WSJTX, I believe there is a setting right in the WSJTX software where you can turn off recording. Just turn it off. You don't need to record it. Anyway, just my 2 cents.
K0SR.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I looked for that, and there, as far as I could see, there is nothing, and what I looked up on the net through many, many sources is nothing related to that. You just have to go in and delete those, but boy, I'd love to find somewhere where I could stop that from stuffing up my drive. Anyway, and I do have the second thing that you got that part.
Roger. I did use WSJTX like several years back. I can't remember when it was, and I remember something about that I was given advice that you needed to turn off recording because by default it would, but it thinks you're dedicating the whole computer and the whole hard drive to nothing but WSJTX, which for some of us is not actually true, much to somebody's disappointment. But that was years ago, and I'm sure there are different versions of it now, but I think research is in order, and I too will have another closer look at that. But I recall, like I said, a long time ago, that there was a place to stop that from happening. But I haven't looked at it in a very long time, and I will. Okay. Question number 2, just a moment. My ham shack is at the end of my shop building that is approximately 150 feet from the house. I am now officially jealous, okay. Wanting to share more time with the wife, good call, sir, good call. I'm doing my digital work remotely from the house using Google Remote Desktop. I use HRD, which I believe is Ham Radio Deluxe, HRD Logbook, Rotator, WSTJX, and Grid Tracker. I use 3 screens. However, all of the previous only show up on one screen, and I have to toggle between displays on one screen. Any way to utilize the several screens so as not to toggle back and forth? Let me ask, are you running Windows, Mike, to do this?
Excuse me, yes, SOR, yeah, I am.
Okay, very good. Any input on this question of the multi-screens? This may get to a fairly long discussion, and if it does, I'll suggest we take it post-net. But for now, let's give it a shot and see what we can find out.
KF0QMP with question.
QMP, go ahead.
Does the number of monitors on the 2 computers that you have, I guess, match? I.e., do you have the same number of screens on both ends?
Mike, I believe that was for you. Aki asked if you have the same number of screens on the computers on both ends of this.
Excuse me, SOR, yes I do. I've got 3 out in the radio room, and I have 3 inside here. And inside in the house, using Google Remote Desktop, it only shows up on one of the screens, and I've tried moving a portion of the screen over to the other 1 or 2 or the other 2, and it simply won't do it. So I have to toggle. There's a little arrow on one side of the screen, and I have to go back through 1, 2, or 3 in order to see the various things that I want to see, i.e. Grid Tracker, Logbook, or Grid Tracker, or the other one, WSTJX.
Oh, okay. So if you're using, I'm not sure, using Chrome Remote Desktop. I guess I was going to mention if you're using Windows Remote Desktop, RDP, there is an option to tell it to use all of the screens, and it just means that as long as you have at least as many screens on your your local machine, you can concurrently view all of the screens on your remote machine. But that applies to Windows RDP, that also applies to TeamViewer. So you might try one of those instead of Chrome Remote Desktop and see if that works for you. I'm not familiar with Chrome Remote Desktop, so I don't know if there's a way to do that with that software.
Comment? W2CO.
2CO, go ahead, Tom. Thanks. Well, I'm just sitting here listening to all these things, WSJTX and multiple monitors and whatnot. I run Linux, so I don't know about Windows anymore. I forgot about Windows. But I know there's a way to do it in Linux. It's rather complicated. You have to mess with the video drivers, but you can get it in Linux to display what you want on each monitor. But that's in Linux, not Windows. Sorry.
KESOR.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
I have not fooled with Linux, but that's a possibility for sure. Give me something to do in my old age here. But the Windows, was that Roger Delta Papa?
Romeo Delta Tango remote desktop, I believe.
EMP.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, I have another quick one. Just curious if anybody has trouble with, if they use Ham Radio Deluxe and Logbook, does it load slowly? Mine is miserably slow. And I actually had a phone call with Mike Casper from Ham Radio Deluxe, and his concern is it might be a problem with Microsoft Access, which I've never heard of, but I guess it's a part of Microsoft 365. But I guess, anyway, I don't know for sure, but has anybody had that same problem with HRD Logbook loading slowly?
Evidently not on the net tonight. I know one of the reasons I am starting to dive into Linux with a lot of expert help is because of some of these things and sound card issues with doing digital radio stuff, where Linux does it really nicely and Windows does it really well. Okay, specifically Windows 11 does it not well at all. EMP, go ahead.
Yeah, back to the remote desktop issue with 3 monitors. I was Googling around a bit during the discussion because it appeared to me that it's probably a remote desktop problem and not any kind of ham radio software problem. The problem is the 3 monitors in a remote desktop, and it looks like the built-in Microsoft solution for Windows is RDP, Romeo Delta Papa. I think that was Remote Desktop Protocol. And if you just Google Microsoft Remote Desktop with multiple monitors, there are many tech websites that I'll talk about it. It is built in, but it's not enabled by default, and these websites tell you how to enable that to have multiple monitors, and that'll probably solve that issue and 0 EMP.
All right, very good information. Mike, any further questions on these matters here? Or have we given you enough to go play with for the time being?
Yeah, Bart, and I appreciate all of the comments very much so. You know, the older I get, the more stuff I need to keep my mind engaged, and certainly Linux is going to be a complicated one. But, you know, it's like my ex-wife used to say, you know, Mike, you may have 2 degrees in math from Stanford University, but you're not as smart as you think you are.
Roger. Mine is watching my brain deteriorate over the years. I know I used to be smarter than I am now, and some of it I can put my finger on, and some of it I can't. So some of it's age, and some of it's probably other things. But that's why we have friends and radios, so we can ask these questions and get good answers. And Linux is a lot easier to use than it used to be. When I first started messing with it, oh Lord, 15 years ago, 20? It was a nightmare. You had to be a software guy or you didn't want to bother. Now it's gotten to where even I can do it. And I have a lot to learn, and I know that, but again, I have lots of expert advice, and I haven't even bothered with the YouTube videos yet, but I know there's tens of thousands of them like there is anything else out there. So, all right, we'll put that to bed for the moment. Do we have any other questions or comments for the net this evening?
K0HAK.
Dave.
Thanks, Bart. This is just kind of a comment from Mike going back to the WAV file saving discussion. It looks like in WSJTX, if you look at the menu bar, File, Configurations, View Mode, Decode, there's a Save menu option, and you might have Save Decoded or Save All selected, but there is a Save None option, and that should prevent it from saving those WAV files and consequently filling up your hard drive. K0HAK, back to net.
Excellent. That sounds like the real answer to that issue.
I agree. Thank you very much for that. KE0SOR.
AZA.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, K0AZA. Going back to the remote desktop topic for a moment and kind of building on what Greg said, the one thought I had that came to mind was a more robust remote software than the remote desktop. TeamViewer immediately came to mind, but I was just looking, and they don't have a free version anymore, and their pricing is just stupid. But there are a couple like Ultra VNC, like Victor November Charlie, Ultra VNC, and Tight VNC. Tight VNC specifically says they support multiple monitors, so if all else fails, that might be worth looking into. K0AZA, back to net.
Roger, thank you for your input, Ron. I appreciate it. All right, one more comment. You hear this a lot, particularly on the second Monday of the month, because that is my net night. We would like to get some more net control operators. I would like to see more net control operators volunteer, get learning, get this figured out. It's really easy to do, especially on a TechNet or a ClubNet or any what I will call low priority net. It's easy to do, but I strongly recommend learning it on a low priority net. So when the time comes and there's nobody else available and you have to do it, you don't have to learn how to do it when someone else's safety depends on you. That just adds, multiplies the stress 100 times over. So, anybody that would like to volunteer to start learning how to be net control, you don't have to do it all the time. But never doing it is a really dangerous way to go. When I got my license way back, I was taught, it was beat into me that there are two tenets of ham radio. One is public service, and two is furthering ham radio. And net control is one of the more valuable and more common ways to perform public service with ham radio, to actually do something with it. Well, what do you do with your ham radio? Well, I talk to all my friends. Well, okay, well, what good is that? Well, I like to talk to all my friends. Well, what do you do with ham radio? Well, whenever there's a weather net or a fire or any kind of an emergency locally, we'll get in there and we'll activate stations and go to EOCs and we'll have net controls and we'll actually participate and do stuff. That's a far better answer than I just talk to my friends. It's great to talk to your friends, don't get me wrong, but I would strongly encourage, especially the new folks, get involved with net control. Learn how to do it and just have that tool in your belt. That said, with 30 check-ins tonight, including myself, thank you all very much. I will close the net at, what is it? So it's not quite 7, 6:55, okay. And return the net to normal service. If you still have questions, feel free to ask them anyway. Just because we've officially closed the net doesn't mean we stop asking questions. You can ask questions on this repeater or pretty much any other repeater anytime you want. Feel free. 730 and 0 in my way.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.